One of the first times I used the word lying in print was after the mayor of Toronto chased me around a park, threatening to punch me, called the cops, and then strongly suggested that I was a pedophile. Do you recall this incident? This is, I've noted in a slideshow, this is the National Post's depiction. This is the National Post depiction of the incident. Not exactly right, but that's me with the hat. This was a formative experience for me as a journalist. Covering Rob Ford and covering the Fords as an entity was generally educational because you're on the City Hall beat, so you're covering debates about property taxes and transit, but you're also on the crime beat because he's smoking crack and hanging out with gun traffickers. You're on the high school sports beat because he spent many of his days in the daytime coaching the Don Bosco Eagles football team. So I was, as an urban affairs reporter, my byline was on high school sports stories. You were on the health beat because he was spending every Monday morning for a while weighing himself on a giant industrial scale outside his office. And you're on the weird family dynamics beat because, of course, there was a brother. When I think about how I ended up here at CNN and with these thoughts, it all goes back to that Ford incident in the park. And specifically, it goes back to a column the Toronto Star let me write as I was trying to figure out how to deal with this. The column was headlined, "Rob Ford is lying about me, and it's vile." And after this all settled down, Rob Ford, after I initiated a lawsuit, he apologized to me, retracted the whole thing point by point. After this died down, I got to thinking, if I can use the word lie in a story about me, why can't I use it in all the other stories? Like, why should I get special treatment from myself or my own paper? Rob Ford, just as surely as he was lying about me, had been lying about his opponents, various policy matters. And so why do I have to dance around that objective truth? That's just objective truth. And so I stopped dancing around it. In the 2014 election, I invented something I call the campaign lie detector, where I would count how many, this sounds familiar if you follow my Trump coverage, I'd count how many false or inaccurate, dubious claims the candidates made. And I tallied them because I thought the number and the disparity was important in itself. And that disparity told the story. It was like Rob or Doug Ford makes 20, John Tory makes 2, Olivia Chow makes 2. Like that was the pattern. And so I did that, and I think it was like moderately appreciated. It was kind of low key. The Ford era ended. Well, I thought it ended. It ended for me personally, professionally. And then a month later, I went to Washington, and I was sure that it was going to be much more normal. Like I felt that, I got this once in a lifetime story at City Hall that was weird, that was amazing, but it's, now I get to do normal political coverage. And of course, Donald Trump comes along in June. What was happening was something that historians will tell you we had not seen on the campaign trail in the United States in a long time, if ever. And not only the frequency of the lying, but the triviality of the lying. One that stands out to me was in November, the last week of the campaign, when he started campaigning in Michigan, which he eventually won, he was telling people that he had once been named Michigan Man of the Year. And so I looked into this, some other reporters looked into this. There's no such thing as Michigan Man of the Year. But reporters were basically not telling people that this was happening. So what was happening was Trump would give a speech where he would make 10, 20, sometimes 25 false claims, and reporters would sometimes tweet about this. They'd sometimes fact check it on their own personal accounts. But if you were to read their story in the next day's paper or online or watch the nightly news or the cable news, you would not be told that one candidate said 25 false things. It would be like, Trump gives Clinton new crazy nickname, Trump unveils new policy proposal. I made a habit of checking the front pages of the local newspapers in the places where Trump had spoken in speeches where he had made 25 false claims. And the headline was almost always like, Trump was here, people were excited. You see that one, this was during his presidency, but no punches pulled in a speech where he made 20 false claims. So, this was the tenor of the coverage. And of course, it's a story if you're a small town or a big town and the president comes or a candidate comes. But I thought the truth itself is also important. Yet it was being treated as a non-story or something to be relegated to full-time fact-check websites. Like, let PolitiFact deal with that, and we'll deal with the real news. To me, it was central. To me, truth is not a sideshow. It's the show. To me, it was like, okay, if you went to a car dealership and the dealer said 20 false things to you in an hour, or you went to a bar and you met some stranger who said 20 false things to you in an hour, that would probably be the first thing you told whoever about that encounter. So why wasn't it the first thing that we as journalists were telling our readers or viewers? And I wanted to do something to bring a specific focus to truth or the lack thereof. So one day in September 2016, I just made a list. This is the list of false and dubious things that Trump had done that day. And it got like a moderately good reception. I didn't have a ton of followers then. It got like 200 retweets. I'm like, okay, there's like some appetite for this. So I did it again. That one got 11,000. This was like maybe my second or third one. And that was a ton. It would still be a lot of retweets now. But I was like, wow, there's a real hankering for someone to give them this information. And then came another tweet that changed my life. Michael Moore, of all people, the filmmaker, tweeted, this Canadian journalist every single day, that's the operative part of this, in the Toronto Star, lists all the lies that Donald Trump spoke that day, shames the US media. And I got a ton of followers from that. And I was like, so, thank you. So I was very excited about my followers and Michael Moore noticing me, but I was like, oh my God, I have to do it every day. And that's when I started doing it. Like that's not a joke. That's actually how it happened.